All right, we're on.
We are live, episode 8,
Seven? Seven. It's
7.
seven.
Okay.
Yeah, six was last week. Yeah.
Okay. 7. Wow. All right. Um, yeah, so we got a lot of, I guess we got a lot of football stuff to talk about, a lot of NFL. Um, yeah, basically, yeah, we were just talking about if you guys have not seen it on Netflix, they have a documentary series called was it Untold?
Untold.
They have a few different, are they all sports related or is it just
Yes, they are sports related. I think there's four of them now. They're all, first of all, just a shout out to them, man. They're all really good. They're
yeah.
doing a great job.
So we
It's
talked about the Malice at the Palace one like a month ago.
right.
So they had that one. If you haven't seen that one, you should check that one out. And then Jeremy was telling me to check out the one about the what was it? The Danbury Trashers,
Correct.
Major League Hockey team, which the owner of the team had, I guess, had mob ties, and he ended up going to prison or whatever. But yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, just basically they set up this team, and it's just like, let's just fight everybody.
Right.
And just they're showing footage of it, and just like these like 7, 8, like they're talking to the commissioner of the what was it, the UHL.
Yep.
You have like 7 or 8 fights during a game. It's just like, what the hell?
Yeah. So this series is they're all really good, really well done. There's one about this female boxer, and some of it is crazy story. Like she becomes like the world champion, female boxer, and then her husband tries to murder her, and there's a whole thing that goes on, and it's really intense. And they did one on Marty Fish, the tennis player,
Okay.
about mental struggles, and he started having panic attacks during matches, and how he was going to deal with it, and how much pressure there is on American tennis players because we just haven't had any great ones in such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, Novak Djokovic is about to did he get in the final?
Yeah, I think he's in the final. Yeah.
So he could win every Grand Slam this year?
Yep.
God.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and then I watched they did one on Caitlyn Jenner, which was really cool because it shows kind of like what he did athletically, with the Olympics and all the stuff. So they're all very well done. But this one about is called Crime and Penalties, I think. And yeah, so basically, this guy, he owns a waste management company in Connecticut, and he decides for fun he's going to buy this minor league hockey team and let his son, his 17-year-old son, be in charge of it.
yeah.
And you know, hilarity ensues. It's absolutely insane. What a couple things I find really interesting was that nobody's apologetic. Number one, nobody has a problem with bad behavior at all. The second thing I really enjoyed was the hockey players' mentality. They're all like, "Yeah, we'll go fight, and then we'll go have beers afterwards. It's fine. What's
Yeah,
the problem?
yeah.
No big deal." And it's just
That they because the season, the one season that they had the team was the same season that the NHL had the lockout, and so they
right.
literally just paid an NHL player to come and play on their team. I'm just like, well, that's totally unfair. He's just going to come in there, and of course, you see footage of him. He's just dominating everybody because he's in the NHL.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
so it's a crazy story, and it's really fascinating. It's got kind of a Sopranos kind of motif to it.
well, even and it's funny. Even the commissioner of the UHL hockey league, like they're showing him years later, and he's just like, look, you guys, you had a really tremendous. I forget exactly what he said. Really interesting, season or whatever. Regardless of what I think of it, it was a very interesting, so
Yeah, very very interesting, very well done. So check it out. I thought it was very good. Would you say?
as an interesting sports document. It reminds me of, well, I guess it's not really the same thing, but it reminds. Remember the 30 for 30 on the guy who bought the
Yeah,
Islanders?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on
similar.
credit basically, or whatever the hell he did. He didn't even have the money. I can't
Right,
remember. I can't remember exactly.
right. So yeah, that was really enjoyed it. And so check it out. Check it out on
Yeah,
Netflix.
recommend
Um,
it.
all right, so What do you want to
What
do?
you want to like? Do you want to talk about the Patriots? You want to talk about the Bucks Cowboys game because we just had that. That was the first game of the season.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually, a pretty good game. I was a little surprised.
yeah, yeah. It was, nice win for nice performance by the Cowboys and nice win by the
Yeah, I think some people might read a little too much into that with the Cowboys because I feel like people forget the first few weeks of the NFL season. I don't want to say you throw it out, but it just kind of, I feel like teams are kind of feeling things out and figuring out how to play, how they're going to play.
yeah,
So I don't think like the first couple of weeks, I'm not really sure that the teams are exactly the same as they'll be like, a month and a half from now. So, I don't want to read too much into it. I mean, Dallas, the Bucks, I felt like were kind of screwing around and committing penalties and turnovers, and they still scored 31 points. So, but Dak didn't look like he was hurt. So that's good. But, I still, that division, I mean, again, let's not read too much into it. That division they're in is crap, basically. So they could win the division. They could get a home playoff game, but I don't think they're going anywhere. So, and the Bucks just, what? Brady's 44 and it doesn't matter. He's just slinging the ball all over the field. So, you got to figure if they're healthy, they're going to be really, really, really good. So,
right, right. Yeah, I think it was great. It's great for Dak Prescott to get out there and play well after he was injured like he was. So I'm happy. I'm happy
yeah.
for him.
Of course, some people seem to think that the Cowboys could have the best offense in the NFC, which I don't get. I don't understand.
Yeah, no, I told somebody, last weekend, I was like, look, I think the Dolphins are going to win more games than the Cowboys. And, and honestly, I think I'm right about that. Now, that doesn't mean the Cowboys could make the playoffs, though, again, like you said, because their division's bad. I think the
Yeah,
Cowboys might make the playoffs, the Dolphins probably won't. But I still
yeah.
think the Dolphins will win more games just because, Dallas needs, that's the problem. I mean, they had to throw the ball almost 60 times in that game just to keep
Yeah,
it.
they're not running the ball, so I don't know. I don't know that you really want to be doing that through the course of a season with Dak Prescott. Although
Right.
he made some really good throws, I don't think that's what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and it's not. The bug. It was the first game. Like I can imagine defenses are going to get better and play better
that's
against them.
that's why the first few weeks of the season are so weird because I think the defenses take a little bit to kind of get their footing, and then once that happens, then it's like okay, now this is real. Who's really good? You know. So
Yep, exactly.
so yeah, I mentioned we were going to talk about Bill Simmons because he did his most recent podcast, or the one that went up yesterday. He thought the Cowboys could have the best offense in the NFC, which I thought was weird considering they were playing a game against the Bucks, who scored 31 points, and they have all that talent on offense. So I don't get it. So
Yeah, I don't get it either. I think, like we said before the season, I think the Cowboys are they're right in the middle with everybody else, but they're not really a contender.
yeah, it's the same that it's the same they've basically always been. I do find it kind of funny that there's so much like the season's starting, so get ready for the overreactions. There's overreactions on Monday. There won't be as many overreactions on Fridays because people don't. I don't feel like there's as much of a reaction to Thursday night for whatever reason. People are just getting ready for Sunday on like
Right.
on the morning shows and the talk radio and whatever. But yeah, Mondays there'll be giant overreactions to stuff. Like there'll be giant overreactions to stuff this coming Monday based on what happens. If the Patriots beat the Dolphins, then it's going to be like, oh, they're going to beat the Chiefs now, or some crazy, you know, over the top prediction about will happen based on what happens on Sunday. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, again, solid performance by the Cowboys. Tampa Bay managed to get out of there with a win, which is great for them. Obviously, we
yeah,
all know Tampa's really good. They're really good again. Um,
yeah,
all right. So, you want to do worst take of the week, or did you want
yeah.
to
I
go
think
someplace else?
I think you've got the worst take of the you've yeah. Not
All
you
right.
personally, but you heard someone have the worst take of the week.
Listen, if we have the worst take of the week, please let us know. If that's we'd like if we,
What are you talking about? No,
if
that
we
would never
can
happen.
get, yeah, if we could get on our own show, I mean, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So all right. So my worst take of the week. I mean, this is I'm screaming at the television. Okay, this is one of the worst takes I've ever heard in my life. Okay.
The bad take Hall of Fame. This is
Oh,
like
this is
first ballot nominee.
awful. So our boy, our buddy, Colin Cowherd, his show on Fox Sports every day from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. Um, and honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure what planet he was from when he said this. And I love Colin. This is not nothing against all the
Yeah,
stuff
the
he's
show's
done.
pretty. We've been listening to him for, I mean, 15 years now. Like he's got a pretty good show. I think a lot of times he gets stuff right. I think he has pretty good opinions. He doesn't seem like he's some hot take, whatever. So yeah, we
Yeah,
enjoy his show.
yeah. So I was just kind of unexpected. So he said the other day, I think it was on Wednesday. He said that replacing a legendary quarterback, acting like it's really hard to do, is uh, kind of overstated. Okay, so he said his examples were okay. So John Elway, right? John Elway retires. Everybody says in Denver, well, we still haven't replaced John Elway. Well, I mean, until Peyton Manning, right? We still haven't replaced John Elway. Well, the next year they were bad, and then the year after that they made the playoffs. The Miami Dolphins, well, we haven't replaced Dan Marino. Well, Dan Marino the next year they made the playoffs. It's like, and I'm just going, are you kidding me with this? Okay,
Standard for replacing a legendary quarterback that you just make the playoffs. Is that what we're saying?
basically, yeah, yeah. So he's like, and listen, as a Dolphins fan, okay, I take more offense to this than I normally would, as he used them as one of the examples. So, okay, no, I hate to tell you this, we're still trying to replace Dan Marino.
Yeah.
We're still waiting. Where is he? Okay, they made the playoffs. Great. Jay Fiedler and Ryan Tannehill made the playoffs.
Uh,
Chad
Dante
Pennington.
Culpepper, uh, Chad Pennington, Chad Henne, Tannehill.
Gus Farrat.
Oh, Gus Farrat. I totally forgot about that. There's number 6. Yeah. And now Tua, and I think we've kind of made clear our opinion on Tua that he's not the guy. He's at least not an elite quarterback. So that's hilarious that he's using that as an example to prove his argument when, to be honest, it's an example that disproves his argument.
Yeah, I'm going, what are you talking about? What in God's name like, that makes no sense. Like, are you crazy? Like, it's not that hard. I mean, he's been saying, and the thing is with him, he's been saying for years, as a quarterback-driven league, you got to have a good quarterback. You got to have the best quarterback. If you don't have a great quarterback, you're not going anywhere. But, well, you made the playoffs without, I mean, yeah, so Dan Marino left, but you made the playoffs, so it's not like you're, awful. And it's like, no. So I think this is one of our staples on this podcast, Clark, is there's a difference between we made the playoffs, okay? We're in the middle of the league, and we're a contender for the Super Bowl every year.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between that.
Right.
Yeah.
Any team in the NFL can make the playoffs one year.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal. The Detroit Lions make the playoffs every once in a while. I mean, it's...
Let's just use the Denver Broncos as an example because I was somewhat of a Broncos fan during the 90s because I remember watching the Super Bowl against the 49ers where he got his ass kicked, and I was kind of rooting for him to get back, and then he ended up winning 2 Super Bowls. That was really great. Elway's career, let's think about this, okay? He comes in, I mean, they made the playoffs almost every year of his career in Denver. I mean, I would have to look it up for the most part, but remember, He made 3 Super Bowls in the 80s when it was basically just him. I mean, his defense wasn't that great. He didn't have that great of a running game. Okay. So made 3 Super Bowls on his own. Then finally they put a good team around him. He wins 2 Super Bowls. A bunch of playoff appearances, a bunch of fourth quarter comebacks, some great moments in the playoffs. He gets into the Hall of Fame first ballot. He's an unbelievable quarterback. Okay. Denver was good after that. They had Shanahan. They had a good running game. They had like Jake Plummer and Brian Greasy was kind of good for a little bit. and they were fine. They were good, but throughout the first decade of the 2000s, was anyone saying Denver's a Super Bowl contender?
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
They didn't replace a legendary quarterback. They were able to continue having success because of good coaching and a good scheme for their running game, but no. So
Yeah.
they didn't replace. They replaced Elway with they had substitute teachers basically. They popped some in there and they were good. But they were not a Super Bowl contender. The Packers replaced Brett Favre with Aaron Rodgers. Basically by his second year, you're like, Aaron Rodgers is really freaking good. Then the third year, it's like, okay, he's like an elite quarterback. He wins the Super Bowl, he wins an MVP. Like the next year, he's an elite. They replaced a legend with another legend, right? So there's that one, and then there's basically the Colts replacing Peyton Manning with Andrew Luck. That's it.
Right.
Like, can you think of any other example where they got a Hall of Famer and then they basically replaced him with a guy who is either most likely going to make the Hall of Fame or did make that? Like,
oh
no.
yeah. You brought up Andrew Luck. That was another example that he used. Well, okay, they replaced Peyton Manning, but Andrew Luck, the first year they're in the playoffs, it's like
they went 2-14. They weren't trying to tank. Their roster was just so bad that they couldn't win.
Right. And it's like, yeah, they made the playoffs. It's like, yeah, because they drafted another great quarterback.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's really pisses me off more about the NBA, because I feel like in the NBA you really, really got to get lucky to be a really good team because you have to get high draft picks. So, but in the NFL it's a little bit different. You don't necessarily have to be really you can, because the draft is so much bigger, you can accumulate talent and you can make your team decent, even if you don't have an elite quarterback,
Right.
Whereas in basketball, you got to get a superstar player. You got to get at least one. Even with one, you're not going to win the championship, but
Right.
you got to have at least one.
Right.
So yeah, it's easy to do. You have to understand there's a difference between, the organization itself making smart decisions and making smart roster moves and you getting lucky and then making the right pick. Okay. Like they got lucky and then it was there and they took Andrew Luck. Okay. Other teams don't get that lucky sometimes.
Right.
So, I mean, because remember.
Like the Dolphins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or you make the wrong pick.
Or Denver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like these other teams, like there's plenty of other teams that don't even get the opportunity to make the wrong pick because they never have that high draft pick. I mean, Minnesota's been, a decent team for a while now. And, they go out and they sign Kirk Cousins and,
right.
He's good. He's not elite. And they're not even getting an opportunity to get an elite quarterback. So, that's not I feel like he's kind of conflating like how you would go about running a business and the way things go on a sports team when there's a draft. Like you don't have as much control over that. This is not college where you pick your players. So yeah, that's a pretty ridiculous take.
Yeah, I was just dumbfounded. I was like, how can you say this with a straight face? So
sometimes you listen to stuff on talk radio or TV and you're like, does he really believe this? Or are you just like, do you really like
I couldn't
really
believe it. Okay, so then that's the worst take I've heard in years. I mean, I that's pretty bad. So my next one that I couldn't believe was Mr. Cowherd likes to complain about Aaron Rodgers, which okay, I some of the stuff about Aaron Rodgers, yes, I understand. Yes,
he's kind of arrogant. He's
manipulative.
He doesn't have a lot of come from behind wins, as many as you would think. Okay, that's fair. He's still a really great quarterback. He's an elite quarterback. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league for the last 10, 12 years. So,
right. So, his take was that, so Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show on his podcast, and he basically said, look, the question was asked, what kind of say would you like to have? What are you trying to have in personnel matters or with the front office? And he said, well, when you've achieved a certain status, You feel like you want to, and you're the leader of a team. You feel like should have some input in what goes on, which
which
is
makes
based.
sense. Which just his statement itself makes perfect sense. I totally get it. You know, if you want to complain about, well, why is he saying this? I mean, I guess I sort of get it, but at the same time, like I don't. It's kind of funny how people will say like, well, I don't want this player coming out in the media and airing their dirty laundry in the media. Yet I've also heard sportscasters say like, oh, well, I like how like coaches will manipulate the media. And I'm like, well, what's the difference? Like what, are you're just not allowed to say anything to them? Like everyone doesn't have to act like Bill Belichick to be successful. Like I don't get it.
Right. And so if when you say things like when you've achieved a certain status, it rubs people the wrong way.
Well, but at
And
the same time, how do you want your quarterback to think of himself? Don't we say all the time, like you want your quarterback to think that he's great?
right.
You know,
We
like when
just don't.
remember when Joe Flacco said that he's like, I think I'm the best in the league, and we're all like, oh, whatever. But it's like, don't you want your quarterback to think that? Like,
Right. We just don't want them to say it out loud. You
but then
know.
yeah, but then it's like, well, what the hell's the difference? Like, I don't get it.
Right. Right.
You don't want to be arrogant all over the place all the time.
Right.
But like, if he says something a few times, like, who gives a shit? Like,
So
I
the
don't.
the comparison was made. Well, Aaron Rodgers wants a say in personnel, blah blah blah. Well, Tom Brady didn't get a say in personnel in New England, so why does Aaron Rodgers think that whatever?
Yeah,
And
and
the
he left.
right, and the obvious answer is, well, yeah, that's why he left. It's like, what do you think's going on here? Tom Brady wasn't under contract, so he could just walk. That's why it wasn't an issue. If Aaron Rodgers could have just left, he would have just left, and we wouldn't be taught.
By the way, Colin Cowherd, who loves LeBron all the time. What, you don't think LeBron has like, maybe LeBron's not really the general manager, but you don't think he has a say in these personnel decisions that the teams he's on makes? And you don't feel like Colin has maybe said that he kind of supports that in some way because LeBron is, really good? Like, really?
Yeah. So again, it's I understand if you don't like Rodgers being arrogant, I get it, but he's no different than anybody else in his position. Russell Wilson went on the Dan Patrick show in the offseason and basically said, "Yeah, when you feel like you've gotten to a certain place, you want to have input into the team and all of that stuff." So he basically said the same thing that Aaron Rodgers said, just without making the comment about status exactly. Okay, so it was just absolute ridiculousness. Okay, this show is called. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. Listen, I understand people have a problem with the way Aaron Rodgers acts. I get it. I understand it, but he's still a great quarterback, and he's not wrong with what he said.
Yeah, I don't. I remember the other thing that I always remember is, I mean, I've been starting to think this, that basically the media, including the sports media, is just a giant clown show. Okay, it legitimately is. I mean, and basically what you have is opinion people, or as Colin likes to call himself, America's honesty broker, which he kind of jokes around, whatever. But when you're like that, you basically stake out positions on different things, and then you kind of stick to them. And some of these people might disagree with me, but it's just the way people go about things. It just seems like it's true. Like, for instance, Nick Wright is kind of anti Tom Brady. Okay, whenever he talks about Brady, he's like, oh yeah, I know this, because he just wants him to go away, which I understand as a Dolphins fan. I've been wanting him to go away for 20 years. At least he's out of my division now.
Right.
But so that's why he's like saying, well, I think the Packers have a better shot to make the Super Bowl than the Bucs, which, okay. I mean, I'm not saying that that's ridiculous, but he's just kind of sticking to what his position is, and he also ranks the Browns higher than the Bills, which I guess you can make that case. I don't know. There's aspects of it I kind of disagree with. And then Colin is basically loves LeBron. I mean, just loves LeBron. Not into Aaron Rodgers, really likes Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, really into him. And then like Baker Mayfield, not a fan. Tries to take veiled shots at Patrick Mahomes. maybe they're not even so veiled. He kind of like Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. I feel like he kind of every now and then he's like, I got to get a little dig in there to like, no, they're not as good as you think, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a thing. It just seems it's a thing. People tend to do that.
All
They're
right.
kind of
So that's enough with other people's takes. Let's get to our takes, for God's sakes.
so yeah. Worst take of the week.
Enough of that. All right. Um, so you want to do the you want to talk about the Patriots first? You
Yeah.
had many things to say about this, so I'm going to let you go,
Well,
and
so
then
first of all, just just mark this down because I want to make sure that because this is recorded. Look, my goal this season as a Dolphins fan, or my hope is, excuse me, I'm not playing on the team. What can my goal be? But my hope is that the Dolphins finish the season better than the Patriots, whatever that is. I don't care if the Dolphins make the playoffs. I don't care if they win a playoff game. I legit do not care. I just want the Dolphins to be better than the fucking Patriots. Okay. Okay. That's my thing. So, I mean, so look, I'm turning on. So the game is at like 4:25 tomorrow. I'm
correct.
turning on the TV. I'm watching every second of that freaking game. Okay. So because, and I think you and I sort of agree on this. I don't think the Patriots are as good as Colin Cowherd or Bill Simmons seem to think they are. Okay. I don't get this. Okay. Now look, I think defensively they should be better this year than they were last year. Okay. They had a bunch of guys opt out. That makes sense. Belichick, defensive guy. Okay. All right, fine. But it's 2021. You don't win tons of games purely based on your defense. Okay. So the people saying this are then telling me that Mac Jones, a rookie who has not played one meaningful snap in the NFL ever, okay, is going to lead this team to 12 wins, 11 wins, 12. I mean, hell, 10 is too much. Okay. So, and they're like, oh, and Colin Cowherd was like, oh, they've got all these running backs. Are you telling me your running game is going to be better than the Ravens? Because if that's the case, okay.
Or the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bill Simmons is saying, oh, well, the running backs on the Patriots are just every bit as good, if not better than the running backs on the Browns. And I'm just like, really? You know, he's saying this Patriots team reminds him of the team in 2003. You know what this team is missing that the team in 2003 had? Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. Okay. So,
other than that, they should be fine.
Yeah. Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah. And by the way, I'm no Tua fan, but you're telling me that Tua's not better than Mac Jones? Tua can at least move a little. He's not as athletic as like Russell Wilson or Lamar Jackson, obviously, but Tua can move a little bit. You saw a little bit of that last year. Tua's played 9 games in the NFL. Okay. So I don't, I'm trying to figure out where this, I don't know where this is coming from, where these people think the Patriots are so, I mean, Mike Greenberg on, I guess TV and probably the radio show too, thinks the Patriots are one of the top 4 teams in the AFC and they can be scary good. Based on Mac Jones throwing against second and third string guys in the preseason. Like, I don't, and Colin Cowherd saying the Patriots are going to be this good. Okay. First of all, for like a year, you were saying Tua needed to be drafted by the Dolphins. The Dolphins had to take Tua. And then a week before the season, you're like, oh, no, he's not that good. He can't move that much. I don't really see it. He's small. Okay. Tua can move better than Mac Jones can. So you're telling me Mac Jones is all of a sudden better than him? Mac Jones played with basically the same guys.
Yep.
So I don't, and again, you're comparing him to Tom Brady. Look, which is, first of all, it's just, I can't believe. Just that's ridiculous on its face. Okay. But look, okay. Tom Brady played in college in the late 90s, okay, on Michigan. All right. And I don't know as much about that Michigan team as I would know about like Alabama right now, but look, that team got overloaded with talent. They didn't go into basically every game knowing we have a significant talent advantage over the other team, or we have a bunch of future NFL players on our team. They didn't go into games like that. Brady had to have a bunch of comeback wins, and he couldn't. What was I going to say? I mean, he had to fight for the starting job on the team. Okay, so Mac Jones, I mean, he goes out on the field and it's basically like, look, if I just deliver the ball here, that guy's probably going to score a touchdown. If I just hand the ball off, this guy's going to run for 20 yards. If I make this one read, the NFL is not like that. Okay. And they're saying, oh, well, Mac Jones, all he's got to do is they got a good offensive line. He just got to sit in the pocket and read defenses like crazy because the Patriots receivers are not that good. Brady had to cover up a bunch of those flaws for the last, 7, 8 years he was there because they never drafted any good receivers. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's
So
more or less my take, I guess.
okay. So yeah, no, and I agree with most of it. So look, there's two sexy teams now that have become people are dying to pick them now, and that's the Patriots and the Rams. And the Rams obviously because they got a new quarterback, and
The
so
Rams, look, I get a little bit more because I think Sean McVay will put them in a position to succeed. They'll be able to run the ball. Their defense will be really, barring injury, their defense should be really good. They've kind of got a system there that they've had, going for a while. So I get it. If you don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, fine. I don't know that they're necessarily going to do that, but they should be pretty good. I mean, their defense, their division's really tough. So
right. Right. So, yeah. So I think that, yeah, we're going a little bit overboard. I mean, I quoted you the Super Bowl odds yesterday. The Dolphins and the Patriots are both 30-1 to go to the Super Bowl. But if
yeah.
you listen,
If the Patriots are you're telling me the Dolphins aren't at least as good as the Patriots? Like really?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing that doesn't make any sense is that it doesn't line up when you watch all these sports shows and everybody, and I get it. Everybody's big Belichick fans. They're basically supporting the infrastructure. You know what I mean? They're basically going, well, Belichick is Belichick, so he should be able to do whatever he should be able to do. So that's where I think it's coming from. So look, I think 12 games is a little much for the Patriots. Like I don't think they're one of we went over this. You're not going to the Super Bowl thing that I did last week. The Patriots are not contenders for the Super Bowl, so we need to just stop that right now. Any talk of that is ridiculous. If you're going to talk about the Patriots as Super Bowl contenders, then you need to talk about the Dolphins the same way. If you're going to be fair about this, so that's number one. Number two, I think they're definitely going to be better than they were last year. I mean, now look, they had I think they're, like I said, but I think them and the Dolphins are basically neck and neck. I can understand why people think the Patriots are going to the playoffs. I think that's reasonable. If you said you think the Patriots are going to the playoffs, I can understand that. I think they're going to be pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised if they got to 10 wins. But I agree with you that yeah, the Super Bowl contender thing is
Well, they're
ridiculous.
throwing out like 12 wins, and I'm like, well, now there's one more game, so I guess you could finish 12 and
5.
5. Okay. Um, yeah, but you realize that's you're winning, so 17. So that's like 80% of your schedule, like 75, 80% of your schedule. Like you have to be really good to have that. You got to be really good, or you got to get a bunch of turnovers, and you got to, and I just don't like. I feel like the Patriots are going to be in a bunch of close games. Like, am I wrong about that? Like, doesn't that feel like? Isn't that sort of the formula that it's going to have to be? They're going to run the ball. They're going to have Mac Jones. Don't make mistakes. So play good defense. Like,
Yeah, they're going to be similar to what they were last year, like before Cam Newton got COVID, where they
which I just feel like it's very difficult to win 12, 13 games that way.
yeah
Particularly when you don't particularly like the Dolphins. Look, the Patriots defense has talent on it. The Dolphins defense has talent on it. The Dolphins offense, would you say, is more talented than the Patriots? I
well,
mean,
I mean,
on some level, I basically think that with Tua, again, I'm not the Tua fan, but I just feel like for some of the time, just get the ball out to the playmakers a little bit, and they'll make some plays. If they're going to run pass option, fine. He can probably do that successfully a little bit. So just do some of that, and they'll make some plays. So I don't, the Patriots, I feel like it's going to be harder to come unless they're running the ball. I feel like it's going to be harder to come by big plays because, again, Mac Jones is a rookie. Okay. So if you're expecting him to make up for receivers not getting separation from the guys guarding them based on pre-snap reads, like I don't really see that. I mean,
yeah,
maybe he does that 2 or 3 years from now, but I don't.
yeah. I think they're nip and tuck with the Dolphins, and that's not the way it's being presented. Like the way that
Yeah.
the way that we're being fed it is that they're they're going to be dangerous because Belichick is amazing and their defense is going to be unbelievable. Well, I don't see why their defense is going to be any better than the Dolphins' defense is. And they're very similar teams. They're running this. They have this a head coach who work together. Like Flores is from the Patriots. So yeah, they're going to be really similar. I don't understand the Patriots as contenders. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I do think they're going to be pretty good, but I'm not. Again, like if they're better than the Dolphins, it might be by a game, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and if you want to listen to Bill Simmons' podcast from I think it went up on the 10th.
Right.
So he talked about this. Look, I'll give him credit because he came up with this whole narrative about how it would be cool to see the Patriots play the Bucs in the Super Bowl. And yeah, it would be. That would be awesome, And then he's like, they make the playoffs, they play the Browns, which Belichick used to coach on the Browns, and he beats the Browns, and then he beats Kansas City. I'm like, first of all, there's no way the Patriots are beating Kansas City in the playoffs. And then they end up playing Buffalo and they beat Buffalo and then they go to the Super Bowl and which, yeah, that's an interesting story. I mean, it really is, but it's like, what does that have to do with what's actually going to happen? Like, I don't understand. Mac Jones is and again, I don't want to be coming too hard down on Mac Jones, but he's a rookie. Like what, and you're like, well, Brady wasn't a rookie.
Right.
Brady had been in the league 1 year, backing up Drew Bledsoe. Right. So, and also when that happened, that was 20 years ago. The NFL was very different. They beat the Raiders in the playoffs like 16-13. I mean, the games, they won that Super Bowl 20-17 against the Rams. So I don't feel like you're going to be able to win that way.
I agree.
And what's so funny is with Colin saying that he thinks the Patriots are going to be so good, he's the same guy who's always talking about how defenses can't stop anybody anymore because of the way the rules are. So,
right.
Yeah,
how are they going to stop? And, you can tell me how great their defense is all you want. You're going to stop Josh Allen? You're going to stop Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah. I do think people need to slow down on Josh Allen a little bit because he's had one really good year, but I do find this kind of funny because Nick Wright is all high on the Browns over the Bills, right? And he's like, well, because Josh Allen had one good year. Baker Mayfield had one good year. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, but that's an argument about if you think the Browns are better, you just think the Browns roster is better.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah,
and
that's fine.
It's more talented, but they're rebuilding the defense. So you got to wait and see what Cleveland's defense really is. Like if it's just they have two good pass rushers and that's all they have, then I have a hard time with that. Unless Cleveland's defense becomes top 10 in the NFL. Now, if that happens, then look out because they're loaded. They're loaded every place else.
Right, exactly.
So we'll see about that. So, So, anything else you wanted to talk about the Patriots? I mean, we're basically on the same. We're basically on the same page. I think
I'm tuning in tomorrow. I'm watching. I mean, because the Dolphins, they've been able to beat the Patriots in September multiple times. So I feel like this is kind of an important game in terms of finishing better than the Patriots because the Dolphins' schedules, we've gone over this, is pretty tough, especially the beginning part of it. So if you beat the Patriots, okay, that kind of sets things up a little bit. You get one win over them, and then you play them at the end of the year.
The Dolphins will be determined by their first 6 games. Their first 6 games are brutal. The Patriots' schedule is much more spread out. They play a lot of the same teams, but it's not back to back to back. If the Dolphins get past the first 6 games and they're 3-3 or something like that, they're in good shape because the rest of it is not bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So I was thinking. So anyway, but our basic idea is all right. Everybody, slow down on the Patriots. Relax. Like I said, you're not going to the Super Bowl. Get used to it. I know New England's been to the AFC Championship game over and over and over again, and they think last year was just an outlier, and they're going to just, roll over everybody. Okay, relax, folks. You don't have to.
The GOAT is no longer on your team.
Right.
So.
Right. All right. So I had this idea. I want to bring back some of, Clark and I have some fantastic
old takes that you guys have never heard before because we weren't doing this,
right? That
15,
we
15, 20 years ago.
things that we've come up with over the years. Because basically, this podcast, just so you guys know, is basically just us having a phone conversation. This is what we do when we talk on
Pretty
the
much, yeah.
phone. So now we've just kind of organized it into this format. So one of my favorite takes of all time is our take on the New England Patriots. So for years, Tom Brady has dealt with substandard receivers. Okay,
Danny Woodhead,
right? Yes, a bunch.
Julian Edelman, who was a quarterback.
Right, Julian Edelman was a quarterback. They picked up Danny Amendola. Um, but Chris Hogan.
Right.
Um, several receivers who I don't or who
It
are
feels like he's just kind of Belichick. Just kind of he's like, all right, I got to draft people. All right, let me get in the car, and then he just drives out to like a lacrosse field somewhere outside of Foxborough, Massachusetts, and it's just like that guy looks good. Hey, can you run? Yeah. Can you throw? All right. Or can you catch? All right. Yeah. Come on.
So I think we came up with this after I think Gronkowski got hurt, or Gronkowski, it was like going to be his last year, or something like that. I think is the time we came up with this. So basically, our theory was that Bill Belichick over the years has gotten increasingly arrogant and believes that he can
He's
fix.
good.
Yep,
Yeah.
he's so good that he can fix anything. So he literally is purposely trying to make it more difficult by not giving Brady any receivers and drafting 5'10" white lacrosse players. As
It'd be like if you or I were trying to beat Tecmo to go undefeated in Tecmo Bowl blindfolded or something.
right,
Like one hand on the controller or something.
right.
Like let's just make this ridiculously hard just for the hell of it.
He just was like, you know what? I've won 6 Super Bowls. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to screw around. I'm just going to make it more difficult, and nobody else can stop because he has full control of everything. He can choose. He can do whatever he wants with the front office, so he has nobody to answer to. So he's like, all right, well, I'll just keep making it more difficult. So it went from Randy Moss and Wes Welker to Julian Edelman and Danny Woodhead to
Well, this has been going back because remember, okay, because first of all, when they won the first 3, right, and even those teams, you had Troy Brown and
Deion
Dave
Branch
Patton and like Deion Branch. At least, like I remember they got rid of him, and then he went to Seattle, and he was productive.
Yeah.
A lot of the other guys, like you didn't really hear anything from them after they left.
Givens and Patton and
yeah, right. And then remember after they won the second Super Bowl and the third Super Bowl, that next year Brady had all these guys who just they couldn't get open, they couldn't get any separation.
Right, Riche Caldwell and
yeah, it was like a couple years of that, and then they brought in Randy Moss and Wes Welker, and then they drafted, then they got those tight ends. They got Hernandez and Gronkowski, who at least were kind of a matchup. That's our criticism basically. It didn't seem like they ever got really any matchup nightmares on offense. So it's like, how the hell is Brady doing this? Like he's just,
So, every year, and this happens every year in the draft, the Patriots, their pick comes up in the first round and they trade down. They don't bother getting a great blue chip talent. What they do is, and this happened in the 2020 draft, which I thought was absolutely hysterically funny. They traded down out of the first round, out of the second round, and they drafted a Division II linebacker from a school called Lenore Rhine. And to me, that crystallized exactly what we're talking about with the Patriots. No, you know what? I'm just going to challenge. I got to find another challenge because I just keep winning Super Bowls. So I'm going to just screw around and challenge myself some more. And that's what the Patriots do. And the thing is, they could get away with it because they had Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So it didn't even matter. It's just he's just kind of messing around with it. So I just thought, when we came up with this on the phone, I just died laughing. I thought it was just so much fun. Another great take that I thought of that we had was one year when the Denver Nuggets.
This was like, what was it, 08 or 09?
08, 09.
The Lakers in the conference finals.
Right. So the Denver Nuggets, they had Carmelo Anthony, and then they had a bunch of just random NBA dudes.
Phillips, they had J.R. Smith.
Chauncey Billups, J.R. Smith.
Birdman on that team?
Yep. Chris Anderson, Kenyon Martin, Wilson Chandler. It was a bunch of, random NBA guys who have been on a whole bunch of teams and whatever. and it was back right when that was kind of right after when everybody started getting tattoos. Like if you watch a highlights of an NBA game from like 2004, it's not like it is now. They don't have as many guys.
There were still. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like in the late night. Well, after Jordan. I mean, the end of Jordan's. Before he retired the second time, it was starting to get that way because there was a little more hip hop influence in the NBA,
Right, the
and
Allen
then kind of
Iverson generation. Yeah.
2000s it's kind of escalated more and more, and then it became it's like guys have just tattoos just like all. I mean, again, this kind of mirrors society, by the way, because there's
Right.
people walking around with tattoos all up and down their arms and whatever else.
Right. Which, hey, nothing. Again, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it changed. It was different.
Yeah, definitely
So,
was.
so we came up with a rule, and there always. I think there was a general rule in sports. You can have one guy who's kind of off the rails, a Ron Artest, Dennis Rodman type character, but you can't have two, because once you have two, well, then they hang out together, and they cause trouble.
We were like, if you got more than one guy, or what was it, one guy
guys.
or two guys with two guys with neck tattoos on your team, you're probably not going to win the championship.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the way it is, and I think it's probably gone by the wayside now, like based on the way things are now. I mean, I haven't checked.
It's tough it'd be tough. Like I was trying to think of this. So like when the Heat won their first the franchise's second title, but the first with LeBron,
right?
They had Birdman, who was also on the Nuggets. I mean, he's got his neck is just all like. Which first of all, I can't imagine how freaking painful that is. But anyway, they had him, but I think that was kind of it. I think they had LeBron's got a bunch of tattoos, but LeBron doesn't have neck tattoos.
Right.
So they were kind of right. And I was trying to think of other examples. I mean, that may have kind of fallen by the wayside, but not too. Like you'd be surprised. I mean, because remember, getting tattoos on your arms is one thing. On your arms, your back, your chest, even your legs.
Right.
The neck or the head is kind of I'm all in. I'm a tattoo guy. Like there's no, you can't wear. I mean, you can wear a turtleneck, I guess, but there's no coming back. Like for instance, like look, if you're gonna have a neck tattoo, basically you gotta limit yourself to certain professions. Professional athlete, professional musician, probably like heavy metal musician. Like James Hetfield's got a neck tattoo, and he's got a bunch of other tattoos, which is fine. He's a heavy metal. He's in Metallica. Who cares? But yeah, you kind of limit yourself. Like that's the thing. Like I used to work at a place I used to work. A guy had tattoos like all down his arms and stuff, and he would always wear long sleeves. But then if you saw him outside of work, it's like, oh wow, he's got just because you can cover it up. The neck is a basically all it like. For instance, like if you went to a tattoo shop and your first tattoo you wanted to get a neck tattoo, the artist would probably be like, "Whoa, hold on, are you sure?" Because it's throwing all your chips in. There's no coming back.
It's a commitment. It is a commitment. You are engaged. You are putting on the ring at that point. Yeah. So we just watched this with this Denver Nuggets team, and they made the conference finals. Like they were good, and almost beat the Lakers. So so that's kind of our general rule. You have more than two guys with neck tattoos in the NBA. Yeah. You can't win the championship. And because in the NBA, you can have guys who ride the bench, like Udonis Haslem for the Heat. I mean, he just rides the bench. He doesn't actually play in any of the games, so you can get by with that. But more than two guys, it's a tough sell. Tough sell.
Yeah, because again, it's kind of like I don't like. I'll be honest. I don't think a neck tattoo is necessarily the best judgment. Like I kind of feel like everybody who does it later on in life kind of looks at themselves and goes, "Damn it, why did I do that?" Because look, you can get tattoos removed, but it's apparently extremely painful. Like you might be able to get one removed from your arm or something like that. But usually people don't like if they have a tattoo they don't like, they usually just get a tattoo over it. So yeah, again, it's an all-in thing, and it's kind of like, really, bro? Like really? Just on your, I mean, and it's even worse when you see people who get their heads tattooed. It's kind of like, all right, well, especially if they're bald, because then you don't even have hair you can grow over it. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it is. You're making a statement if you're doing that. That's all I'll say about that. But
let's just get a mohawk. Like you can at least let the rest of your hair grow back. Like I don't.
Yeah. So those two takes, those I thought were legendary. That things that I thought of.
some other old ones that we had. I can't. I'm trying. I
yeah,
was trying to think this week.
we'll dig a little bit more, see if we can find some. But yeah, those were fantastic. I couldn't get enough of that. Um, all right, so what else? What else did you want to talk about? I had some random
No,
stuff,
like,
but
well, obviously next week we'll talk about what happened in the Dolphins Patriots game, and then whatever else happened in the NFL.
right.
Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's pretty much what we had this week, I think.
Yeah, so I had a couple, just a few random things. So, you brought up the Rams. I think I can understand why people are picking the Rams to go to the Super Bowl. Me personally, I like San Francisco better, but that's just my personal preference.
That
Um,
division, to be honest, that division I feel like it's kind of a toss up. It's going to be based on who stays healthy and like it's so tough.
yeah, so the thing I keep hearing that I've heard numerous times is like, well, Matthew Stafford, I mean, he never won a playoff game with the Detroit Lions. I mean, how do we know, like, people are all in on him. How do we know he's any good, And the argument I mean, what I keep thinking about is, well, yeah, he played for the Detroit Lions. Of course they didn't win anything. Like what did you expect? Like I think people are being, I think the Rams getting rid of Jared Goff and getting Matthew Stafford, I think it's a slight upgrade. We're going to find out exactly how much of an upgrade it is.
Yeah.
If they like him that much better, I understand that, but I'm just a little I'm a little confused by that. I feel like, yeah, nobody was going to win with the Detroit Lions, and now we'll find out how good he is, on an actual good
Yeah.
team. I just think there's only a handful of quarterbacks that are like generational. They transform your team and all that. Most of them, you got to have the right people around you. So I think the idea that the Rams aren't going to be any good because of Stafford is kind of nonsense because they have a
No,
good team.
Sever's very talented, and we've seen him play well over the years. Is he an elite quarterback? I don't think so. I think we would have kind of seen that.
Well, this is going to be interesting because there's a bit of a divide. So there's some people on some of these sports shows kind of backhanded, not giving him any credit because he played for the Lions. And then they took a poll of like GMs and front office people in the NFL, and Matthew Stafford was the sixth best quarterback. That's NFL people who work for teams saying that. So it's a bit confusing. I'm really fascinated to see how he does because there seems to be quite a difference between how people feel. Peter King thinks the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Bill Simmons doesn't think Stafford is, going to be great on this team. So I'm really confused. I don't understand. How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, does he feel like Stafford's not going to fit into a system or something? I don't understand. Like,
I no, I think it just goes back to, well, what has he done to prove that, and again, I just go back to, yeah, he played for the Detroit Lions. What do you want? What do you want? Nobody
they
wins.
had they had Jim Schwartz, who was a nutcase, and then they were decent when they had Jim Caldwell. Like they
Right.
made the playoffs one of those years. They probably should have beaten the Cowboys. They got screwed on a couple calls in that game, which I remember. Um, you know, so yeah, right. And then they had Matt Patricia, who obviously, another one of Belichick's disciples who turned out to be a really shitty coach. Um, Brian Flores is like the only one who's actually worth a damn. So yeah, so I don't like. It's tough for me to say that the jury is in on Matt Stafford. I kind of feel like we're going to know this year what kind of quarterback he is. I still don't think he's an elite quarterback, and I don't think most people are saying that. I would think, but
Right.
I think he can be better than he was in Detroit, and they can probably win more games.
Well,
You know,
and I don't like the playoff games as a barometer, especially now because Ryan Tannehill has two playoff wins and Kirk Cousins has one.
yeah, that doesn't right exactly. If
I'm not just going off playoff wins anymore. Give me a break. Like that I think is I think with quarterbacks now, the bar is so high. You know what I mean? Like everybody can come in.
I feel like Stafford is at least as good as, I mean, you mentioned Kirk Cousins and Tannehill.
Right,
I feel like Stafford's probably at least as good as they are.
right. And if he is, that's perfect for
But
them.
yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, right. If he's at least that good and they have all that talent, then yeah, they should be pretty damn good.
yep,
You know, so
yeah, yeah. Um, so we already talked about the Cowboys. I mean, look, I think the Cowboys could win the division, but I don't think they're going anywhere.
what's that really saying though?
Right. I don't think that means anything. I mean, there's a bunch of people picking Washington to win the division, so that should tell you all you need to know about what people think of the Cowboys. Um, you know, the college football game last week, Georgia at Clemson. Georgia won, and Georgia's defense at least was ridiculous.
Yeah,
And I'm hearing all of this. Well, and in college football, this happens. One team loses a game, and everybody goes nuts because one game matters a whole lot in college football. And
well, Clemson lost a lot of people to the NFL,
right, yeah,
so you feel like they're due for somewhat of a down year.
yeah. So you know what though, I think there's a bigger college football conversation that I want to have. I need to do a little more prep work for it, but I'm kind of onto something because I was looking up, years in college football with a lot of upsets, and I think there's like a point in time where you can see where Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson kind of took over. So I don't know. I have some more thoughts on that, but we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah,
but yeah,
well, lost today, so
yeah. Ohio State lost today, right? Yeah,
yeah, to the Ducks, so
yep,
to Oregon. So
yeah,
that's. I mean, they could still Ohio State could still end up in the playoff. I mean, that wasn't a conference game.
right,
So but I mean, it's not necessarily the best loss. You're at home.
yeah.
I mean, it's a great win for Oregon. You go on the road and I mean,
Yeah. No, I mean, basically, my comment was Georgia and Clemson are still in the running for the playoff. Neither one of them is out of it because they lost that game. So that's kind of
yeah, exactly.
the
Yeah,
point
we
I
we
wanted to
kind
make.
of we kind of knew that going in. I mean, if Clemson wins out, they potentially could be in. Georgia, same thing. Especially because they won now. I mean, they could potentially go to the SEC championship game and lose, and
Still
like
get
maybe
in.
they still get in. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right. So anything else?
no, I think that's a good.
Okay.
That's
All
a.
right. So
But
let's root for those Dolphins.
remember, be careful about getting a neck tattoo.
That's
Think
right.
it through
That's
because you
right.
can't take it
Be careful. Yeah. Neck tattoo. That's our message for this week. Don't be
Go
ridiculous.
for the arms, go for the back, the chest,
Yep.
legs, calves. Stick to that area.
Don't
The
be
head.
don't be ridiculous with tattoos.
Are you in a heavy metal band? Okay. If not,
Yeah, that's good. What, Clark, that could be a good segment.
rephrase that. Are you in a heavy metal band and you make a living being in a heavy metal band? Because if you're in a heavy metal band like on the weekends, no. Okay, just hold off on the neck tattoo. Okay, just wait.
Questionnaire for the neck tattoo. That's what we should do. We should come up with some
Yeah,
questions for people trying to get a neck tattoo.
yeah.
All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back hopefully next week for another episode. Everybody have a great weekend.
Don't be ridiculous.